Good afternoon. So, just going to go through my weekly outlook, my areas that I'm paying attention to this week. I'm actually just going to tidy up my charts as well slightly. Um, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this 4-hour support zone. Reason being, this sort of mid-range daily resistance, which I have marked up here, is basically the low of this zone. Then, of course, on the 4-hour, we have new resistance here, which is sort of all in between here. So I don't necessarily need this at the minute. I'll just make it a little bit clear. In terms of this, I don't necessarily need this as well, because if I'm looking at this time frame for buys, I can just say, well, it made sense to buy above here, but based on what occurred last week, it makes more sense to buy above here. Right, so I'm just going to delete that. So let me just have a look at that on the daily. How does that look? Okay. Yeah, so I think that's fine for me. You can clearly see I've sort of got my overall daily range here, got like a mid-range daily, and that's fine. Yeah, it looks a little bit clear for me there. So looking at the monthly, I'm just going to break it down from the monthly to the 4-hour, maybe 1 hour, don't know, but we'll have a look. So on the monthly, we are bearish. Now we've basically got, near enough a week left to this monthly closes, so unless there's some fucking heavy upside this week, which there could be, there's a good chance that this will close bearish. How it closes bearish, I don't know. It might close with a very large reaction to the upset rejection, that looks like, or it could close like, doesn't it? I'm not even going to talk about how it closes because it doesn't matter, right? I mean, I don't really care how it closes either, but we're still bearish at the minute, so it's not closed. Not really much to talk about on the monthly. But we are sort of below this mid-range support, which is like, I'm just going to mark that up just to see how that looks. Is here. I'm just going to mark that up white just for now, just to see what that looks like. It is sort of bang on that daily resistance there anyway. So actually, let me just make this a little bit cleaner. Yeah, right, okay. So weekly's interesting. We are bearish, but kind of similar to last week or the previous week. That sort of daily did complete that sort of triangle to the downside. You could say that we've touched the lows, came down here, which is near enough on this support zone, right? And the last week, the week just gone, is the same. We sort of failed to close below. We sort of reacted, but it did close bearish. So what would have been more comfortable for me would have been if we did close bearish below this support, like down here, then any pullbacks I could look for this support to act as an area for resistance that we can sell from. Or if we come above, if we can hold support above, then it could look like something like that. Or if we fail to hold support and we start to violate that and come back below, then that's going to offer areas to potentially sell from. But we did react. So for me, next week, this support zone is going to be, it's difficult to see where this forms, like where's it at. So it's obviously we gapped up here, so I just want to look and see on the daily. Let me just right, let me just mark this up on the 4-hour. I just want to see what that looks like, or that's on the daily. I want to see what that looks like on the weekly. because I don't want to put it up there, right? But if I go to the daily, clearly see that Friday, well, this is, that's the start of the week. That's Monday. Right. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Monday. Gapped up here, pull down. So this is definitely where we see that little, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put it on the bearish candle, right? For now. So I'm just going to name that weekly support, and one weekly support. That's going to be my first area of interest, because this could be an area where price can hold support from. We could push down here and look bearish and react. We look at this on the daily, it is daily support, so anywhere near enough within this zone here is going to be an area of potential to potentially buy from. It is down at structure support lows. If we struggle at this area and start to change structure in here, this is going to be like a prime area to buy from. I feel like, so that's going to be an area of interest for me on the weekly. I'm just going to mark this white. Oh shit. So that's an area for me on the weekly. But yeah, based on the weekly and what I can see from a structure perspective, this is the sort of most recent, like this is what price was doing: support, resistance, support, resistance. And now where is price? So price is trading, because price is trading in here, it's trading in the most recent resistance and support. So for me, this support and this resistance is going to be very important for me. So weekly resistance, and I'm just going to make that white for now, because what we could do realistically in here is price could just range between this structure. Obviously, if we break above this structure and we can hold support above, that's going to be a good sign for upside, and the same for downside. If we can close below and any pullbacks into this, and we fail to close above and we start to break below, that could be an area for selling opportunities. So those two areas on the weekly are going to be very important for me. And if I just drop to the daily, yeah, so we're sort of in there. So weekly, two areas for me, we're trading within that zone. If we're below it, makes sense to sell. If we're above it, makes sense to buy, in my opinion, especially if we can hold structure above or below on either end. So if I just drop to the daily, I like further downside based on the daily, and the reason for that is I just get rid of everything. Yeah, it might be a little bit clearer to just, yeah, kind of similar to what we were doing when I was talking about structure and the reflection of breaking down here. Price is putting in higher support. We then come down, we're still above the most recent support here. We then fail to continue. We react at this resistance and we break down. We close below the most recent support here. We also close below this most recent support. We then pull back into previous structure, fail again, put in a new low. You'd say we then pull back into this structure and we push up as far as this structure and this structure, and we fail, big rejection, put in a new low, right? So where are we at the minute in terms of market structure and position? Well, we're clearly below this daily support that was holding all this price action up, and now we've got to close below. We can clearly see that the previous weeks, or previous days, sorry, we couldn't close below. We failed, we wicked in, and then eventually we got to close below. So this daily support is going to be a very important area for me. next week. And the reason for that is because if we're able to remain below, if you think about where this daily support is, it's like this whole structure. Let me just take off this magnet. This whole structure, which is basically here. So even if price pulls back to the actual low, forms lower resistance, reacts off of all of this garbage, push down. Price could pull back in as far up as here, form lower resistance, push down, right? Price could also push back in here, close in here, and then you think buys, or sorry, then you think sells. Price could pull back to the previous structure point and form a higher support to then continue up to the top of the range and maybe continue the overall bullish price action, because that's what we are, macro and higher time frame. We're very much bullish still on GJ. So in terms of me buying and selling next week, I prefer to be selling away from these levels. So I would like to be below here and selling. If I'm above here, if I'm selling, I'm cautious of this level. I'm also cautious of maybe lower time frame levels in here, because if we close within this zone, we're now trading within this support and resistance zone here. So we could just ping pong in here. So if we're below this, there's greater chance, in my opinion, of further downside, because we're selling away from all these potential reaction points and rejection points. So of course, the only caveat to this is volume. If we're leading into London Open and I can see build up of volume, then I would be more comfortable selling through this level, because if we're gearing up and it looks like we're going to say the bias is bearish, we're failing to continue up, we're breaking down, breaking lows, leading into London Open, buying it opens, pushing, I'd be confident selling through this, because momentum and volume doesn't really care about levels. It'll just bust through. But again, take that with a pinch of salt, be on your game with management, because it doesn't always work that way. So that's sort of what I'm looking at on the daily. So these are my two, see, to be honest, I could just draw this, I could mark up this here and this and say there, and say these two are my levels, but these have formed based on this. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mark up that daily support, and I'm just going to mark it white, just so I can go back and what I'm looking for. Yeah, just go back and highlight these in my weekly Outlook as areas I'm paying attention to. So paying attention to that, I look at the 4 hour. 4 hours quite messy. It's obviously very messy because of all this wick region in there. Just another area I'm going to pay attention to on the daily is, which is also going to be the 4 hour, is this sort of little mid-range, you could say, resistance in here. Here. Daily resistance, mark it up white. Again, this is going to be an area where if I'm selling, I want to pay attention to this, because this could act as a reaction point for upside. And if I just go to the 4 hour, you can clearly see that this is a key 4 hour support area and resistance. So again, if price is up here and I'm selling to that or in and around this, it's maybe not the best area to sell, because it's selling at 4 hour support, and this is potentially where buys can come from, because you can clearly see that we were down here before with a lot of momentum, and we don't break and continue. We break, but we don't continue. So again, this level to me, very important, because again, if I'm a seller and we're say here, doesn't really make sense to sell into this, so I would prefer to sell away from it. So I would prefer to sell below it. So it might be that I just wait for price to push beyond that or close below that, and that's going to give me my indication to sell. So I'm a lot more comfortable selling below that level. So let me just make a wee note here. If I can spell properly. Sound. So, and again, this could be a clear area to buy from. So if we're bullish in the market, in the BAS per se, come to the session and we're bullish, and we're like up here somewhere, and prices, you know, pulling down. If we start to form supports anywhere in here, solid supports, which is then going to look like a higher support from this area, that could act as areas to buy from. Then this daily support is going to be first target, then extensions up to here, and so on, so on and so forth. So daily again, key areas of paying attention to this, of course, and then of course this, which have sort of already got marked up, but I'll just mark it up with the red as well. One daily support, mark it white. Again, that's just going to be targetability. If we're closing below on lower time frames, 1 hours, 4 hours, in between this resistance and this support, then I know that if we can remain within that zone, we're likely going to test the opposite end of that zone. So very much just playing in structure points, you know, between here, between here, between here, like in here on the 4 hour and shit. That's cleaner price action. Like what happened last week from Wednesday onwards is a lot cleaner. So for me, I think if we're trading in and around here, it's very easy to say, oh, this is all garbage, you know, there's so many levels. But paying attention to most recent, this is most recent support, most recent resistance. These are going to be areas of targetability if we're above these areas and up to here. And then of course, if we're above here, it's going to be up to here and up to here. So it's very straightforward looking at most recent, in my opinion. So I'm very much, you know, I was going to say I'm very much bearish, but I'm really not. It just depends on what price is doing, but I kind of know my areas of interest and whether I want to be buying above them or selling below them. I would prefer to not buy or sell into them. So that's more so what I'm going to be looking for next week. If we're above these, can we hold support? Buy. If we're below them, can we hold resistance? Sell. Or if we break them at times of momentum and volume, does it make sense to continue that? So on the 4 hour, sort of already got my areas marked up. There is this most recent support. However, you know, I'm not going to mark this up because I know that's going to be some form of target, or I want to be selling below that, or buying above that. I don't want to be buying into it if we're down here, but I just don't want to clutter my charts and have so much going on. I sort of know where my zones are, and it's very easy to identify, well, if I'm in a specific zone, where looking left is my targets, or areas that could potentially be of interest or reaction on the lower time frames. 1 hour, don't really need to pay much attention to that. I don't believe so. But if I'm looking at, say for instance, areas to buy from, this most recent price action here is very nice. You know, it's easy to say, well, if we can get above here, 160, 200, we can get above this price point, it makes sense. You test into this. I hate this magnet tool sometimes, it's annoying. But it's very easy to just draw on structure. We're above here, target here. If we're above here, target here. If we're above here, target up to here. If we're above here, target up to here. Of course, paying attention to these little levels in between, because they are higher time frame, they're going to hold a lot more relevance and most likely pose a reaction. So that is that. From a right line, I'm just going to kind of do what I was doing previous, which was I'm just going to mark up here. Where is that already support again? Yeah. This, I'm just going to draw this here. Mark on the 4 hour. I'm going to put it green. Buys above. Okay, so that's the main cleaner, I think. You could say above here, which I don't agree with. I don't disagree with. And just having a look at this. Yeah, I'm gonna put a little. Just gonna copy, paste that. I'm gonna put that there. Of course, I know that this daily resistance is above, but if I didn't know that and I disregard all levels, and I say if I'm above here, this, you can clearly say this is clean. This is a clean price movement through all this. So do I necessarily need to pay attention to this? Well, I don't need to ignore it. I need to know it's there, but if I'm above here, the next structure point left is up here, and this is clean price action. So there is no reason why price can't maybe mirror that move. And then we're above here, up to here. But I'm just going to plot that. And oh yeah, it was the actual alert. Boom. Done. Yeah, and then of course sales. I know sales make a lot more sense below this, the low of this. We're below the body of the 4 hour support. We're below the low of that candle that forms it. We look at that on the 1 hour. It's obviously below here. Could target into here. So it could be, for instance, say we're down here. We're at the 4 hour support. Maybe push up, and then we put lower resistance and we break this. No reason why couldn't look for sells down into this area, or potentially continue, and then use this level as maybe an area of management, or maybe there's some sort of structure that comes in here that I can use to manage if we come back above per se. That's just a thought, but I know that makes sense to sell below. Whether that comes in the session or not, you know, it could be that we open and we just completely tank the downside and it's already taken out, so that's okay. But I'm just going to mark that up as sell. Okay. Then of course, where else do sales become relevant? Sales become relevant below this support zone for me, because of course, again, if we're trading down here, this is going to be prime areas for some sort of reaction like this to the upside. So if we're below, price can close below strongly on maybe say 4 hours on dailies, especially a daily candle close below would be great, because the daily closes say down here, then we can look, well, I would be looking for any pullbacks into this zone or even above this zone and then coming back out. That's going to give me options to target the daily low, close below, then continuation. So in my opinion, sales make sense below here. There is this daily support here that it could react on, but I'm more so just plotting it here because it's below the zone, and what I want to see is solid closures below. I need to see, like, as a minimum, solid closures below. Cool. So that's more so based on daily. And then of course, if we close below here, it's gonna, from a targetability standpoint, it's automatically gonna be into these areas, and then into here if we're getting straight continuation. Of course, below here, it makes it easy to say it's into these sections. So I think for now, I think that's based on where we're trading. We're sort of within this previous zone. Most recent structure points here. Yeah, I think this is fine for me. And then of course, let me see as well. Let me just mark up this. What's this? 70 pip range. 90 pip range, maybe including the lows. Based on 4-hour structure, most recent support, most recent lower resistance, most recent support, price can pull up as far as here and still see further downside from a structure point of view. So until this 4-hour resistance is validated and closed above, basically from here could be bullish, and then we could still get downside because this is the most recent structure on the 4-hour. So what I was thinking of was, well, where else makes sense to maybe buy on the daily? Because I'm thinking, well, if we're above this structure daily support, price can close in here and we can hold support above, then it makes sense to maybe continue to the top of that range. But what levels are sort of in there? Well, we've clearly got this 4-hour support, so it doesn't make sense to buy into that. And that's most likely going to be the first reaction point of potential downside, because if we come up to here, we could react at this support first, if not. So I think what makes a lot of sense for me is buys above this support. So if we're up here and we react and we come down and we fail to continue down and we start to come up and form higher supports and break above this, then I'm confident in buying here, because then if there is any form of downside, I would be using this support zone as my area of reaction, my area that I want to be above. So I could do this, buy here, target up here, stop somewhere in and around here, and if price starts to come back below and out of this zone, I could look to manage. I think that's an option as well. So I'm just going to mark up like here, maybe say green. This is just based on structure, by the way. Boom. Buys above. Wait. So if I just draw this up to here, draw that down to there. Bingo. There's my sort of areas there. I'm just going to save that. So yeah, that's my sort of weekly outlook. What I'm planning, planning for potential scenarios, planning for potential areas of interest, and of course, you know, being above this level is going to be above that weekly mid-range resistance, which is good. So yeah, my weekly outlook, yeah, 33 minutes long. It's a long one, but that's sort of just the thought process I'm going through each Sunday, sort of breaking down what I'm looking for.